Hello, welcome to webinar Assessment Beyond Tests. My name is Markus Pakkalen from Kriti, Finland, and today we are going to address a very important thing in teachers and all educators' life and work, assessment. And the question is there assessment beyond tests? I work for Kriti, which is a education technology company in the northern Finland. We have built this digital tool for teachers together with the teachers. It's for coaching and teaching and learning and supporting active role of a learner. It's for assessment and learning analytics. And the topic is assessment beyond tests. And the question here is that, is there any other way to do assessment as the traditional one that's been around for centuries? So this is quite typical picture. I think all of us who've been to school know that you do the test and then you get grade. But I want to ask you that, does this grade really, when you get this grade, you get that, well, I've got 8 out of 10. Does it help you to learn? Does it encourage you? Does it support you in learning? Does it provide you enough feedback that you would know that how could you improve? How could you do better? How could you improve your grades? How could you get better results next time? It's only a grade. Usually it's not very detailed feedback on what went well and what not. So, and if you get this grade, does it only include your learning? Does it include only the knowledge, but it might also include your attitudes towards the school or your opinions about the teacher or the subject or something like that. And these things we don't want to include in the grades. But if we want to use assessment as a tool for learning, not only testing, then it should probably look a bit different. And we propose this idea of continuous assessment, that once you get the grade, it's already kind of too late to get any, to improve your learning. But if you get feedback continuously on the way, then you have still a possibility to, improve your learning before the actual test. And Kriti is a tool for formative assessment. And formative assessment, there are 3 types of assessment in general: diagnostic, which happens before the learning module, then formative, which happens during the learning, and then summative, which happens after the learning, which is typically the test that we are speaking about. And usually the tests measure that what the students have learned. They might be, you get quantitative number, grade. They might be criteria based. They usually make evaluation. They make a value judgment whether student has succeeded or not, or they kind of examine that what the student has learned. But Kriti focuses quite a lot on formative assessment, and it's something that happens, it's supporting the learning on the way. It's qualitative. Usually it's like some verbal feedback or textual feedback for the students, and it describes somehow, not only stating that this is the situation, but this is your grade, but it somehow describes that what's happening, what's the student action, how does he study, and so on. So formative answers to how the students are learning, if summative answers what the students are learning. And you could also think about this as a football practice. Let's say you are practicing football always during the weeks, and in weekends you have games, matches. So when you go to match, it's like summative assessment. you have a match in the weekend, it's already kind of too late to start training at that point. You go to the match and you lose, and that's it. So that's not actually a place where you start working or studying or practicing football. But the most important practice for the game happens during the weeks when you have the weekly football practice. And if you do your work well here, if you work hard during the weeks, then it's no problem for you to have a game on the weekend. You're prepared, you're ready. And at that point, it's kind of too late to start training. So what we should focus on and what we should focus our efforts on is this formative side, what happens during the learning module, not the tests, but something that happens before the tests. So what should the assessment look like if we wanted it to really support learning and not only state that what the student has learning. Okay, then what is this formative assessment about? If we should focus also on other things and not only the tests, what are the ingredients of good formative assessment? Well, feedback, goals, and self-reflection is something that I'm going to address here, because this is something that, according to the Finnish curriculum, includes in the formative assessment. And this is a quote from Daniel Kahneman, a Nobelist, psychologist, economist. True intuitive expertise is learned from prolonged experience with good feedback on mistakes. So quite a lot of what we do in tests is focused on an idea that the students make mistakes, and then we cross out the mistakes, and then we get the grade that you made this many mistakes and this many parts of this test were right. And that's not always the best way of dealing with mistakes. I think that we need to dwell on these mistakes a little bit more. We should provide good feedback on the mistakes. And good feedback is not something that you only cross it that this was wrong, but you should somehow be able to communicate for the students if this was wrong, then what is right, and how can you learn to recognize and make a distinction between right and wrong. And this kind of feedback is something that includes in the formative assessment. And what should the feedback focus on? These two famous researchers, they made a note that most of the feedback that is going on in the classroom is focused on task and product level. And the tests are also focused on task or product level. So what are the students actually doing? What is the work that they're doing? Then there is some feedback on process level, very little feedback on self-regulation level, and lots of feedback on self level. And the self level feedback means that you say, like, generally to all students that, well, you are a great class, great group. You are or individually for some students that you are a great person or a good job, or something very vague, or something that is concentrated in this student's personality. And this is often, like, it gives the message for the students that your job here is to be a good boy or good girl or good student. And it doesn't help, it doesn't tell the students that how are you supposed to improve, how are you supposed to be a good student. So this process level here means how. And the best feedback that you can give for the students is the process level feedback that actually directs the attention of the students on processes, that how are they learning, how should they learn better, how could they learn. Well, the self-assessment, self-reflection, this is a picture from the old fairy tale Snow White, where the queen looks in the mirror and and asks whether she's the most beautiful queen in the world. Well, reason why this is here is the mirror. And idea is that we should also be able to provide a mirror for the students so that they're able to view themselves as learners. They're able to view their strengths and weaknesses and their strategies of studying and their cognitive strategies and so on. And the best mirror that we can give are the other people around, the teacher and the other students. And of course, we want to encourage the students to sort of think about their own actions, to reflect their own actions, to kind of look in the mirror and see that how did I do today? How could I do better? And Kriti, as a tool, includes a lot of self-reflection in all digital tools that Kriti has. And the reason why that is that we want to provide this mirror, this reflection for the students. And why is that? In Finnish curriculum, it divides this process of learning self-reflection in 3 different steps. So first you kind of have this, first the students are directed to reflect their learning. Then on the second step, it is about consistent and structured self-evaluation that is regular, and the students kind of develop a habit of assessing themselves. And then on the final stage, the idea is that the students would understand their learning processes and their cognitive processes, and they would be able to reflect and recognize that what strategies I was using and what strategies I was supposed to do. And the objective for the self-reflection is that the students will learn to be self-regulated and self-motivated and have some ownership for their learning. And in Kriti, there are a variety of tools that can help with this, and collecting evidence about the learning and documenting learning and different facts about learning. And Kriti is a tool that has student interface. Usually students do use it on mobile devices. Then we have teacher interface that is a web application. And then also we have an interface. We have an interface for the principal as well. And we have a set of tools in Kriti that help in making assessment beyond tests. With Kriti, it's possible that the teacher can set up goals, or the students can set their own goals, or the teacher can ask the students to set their own goals. And the goals are displayed as mountains or paths or islands. And when the student is developing closer to his goal, he can move this parrot up the mountain. And we have this system that the teachers can give tasks for the students and kind of like split these larger projects into smaller pieces and write these tasks for the students, and students are able to open their own interface and make finish the task and then make assessment that how well did I do in the task. And the teacher gets valuable data that what was the student experience, and then the teacher is able to make assessment for the projects as well. Then there is this learning portfolio. The students are able to record or document their learning from the longer period of time. For example, if they have a reading journal in which they read all their English reading homework on the course of academic year, then all these voice files will be found in in the learning journal, and you can see the development of the student. The students can also submit videos or photos or text or attachment files in both task lists and the learning journals. Then we do have a quiz tool, which is more like a traditional test tool, because that makes the system complete in a sense. And we do also have this tool for self-assessment, peer assessment, teacher or parent assessment as well. And Kriti is like a sandbox. The teacher can change everything. He can build his own system of evaluation here. He can build his own set of questions, own set of exercises, own sets of learning journals, task lists, and goals for the students. We do have some ready material, but usually the material is made by the teacher himself. And the benefit is that all the stakeholders, everybody who's involved in assessment, are able to view the learning process in one place and visualized as learning data. And typically, Kriti is part of a larger ecosystem of digital tools. Usually there is Microsoft Teams and Google Classroom, but Kriti is more like for a pedagogical use. Goals, personalization, feedback. You get analytics, reports, documentation of learning. And if you want to learn more about how Kriti works, please send a contact for me or send a note for me, and I will help you on with assessment and hopefully beyond the tests as well. Okay, thanks for participating in the webinar, and hope to meet you again. And hope that this will give you a food for thought in your teaching or learning, whatever your role is. Thank you.